But mayors, especially Democratic mayors, we're going to continue to stand in the gap. And I know Mayor Woodfin, Mayor Romero, Mayor Cognetti, and Mayor Fry are standing in the gap every single day. They're going to talk about what they're doing in their respective cities. But here in Cleveland, nearly 170,000 people might go without SNAP if the government is not reopened. And as we know, SNAP serves 40 million Americans across the country. And these folks are working families like the seniors I talked to this past Monday. They're veterans, they're teachers, they're medical personnel, and they are the ones who are powering our economy, and they're the backbone of what makes this country great. And so, without further ado, I'm going to first turn it over to my colleague, Mayor Cognetti, to talk about what she's seeing on the ground right now in Scranton, Pennsylvania. Mayor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor Bibb. Thank you all for hopping on with us today. As Mayor Bibb said, it's unfortunate that we have to convene like this, but you can count on mayors across the country to already be doing the work that's going to help do as much as we can to solve this hunger crisis throughout our communities. Here in Scranton, we have had a hunger task force for many years. We started, I started my tenure January 2020. In April of 2020, we held our first Heart of Scranton fundraiser to raise awareness and funds for food insecurity. We were seeing lines for food events, miles long, snaking throughout our city. You remember back to those moments, realizing that there were so many people that you might know that need help in times like this, that might receive SNAP benefits, which you would never realize it. People with good jobs that have a lot of people in their families that they need to take care of. People for whom, if these cuts hit on Saturday, there will be a devastating blow to their livelihood, the livelihood of their children, their ability for their kids to go to school with a full belly and be able to go to bed with a full belly. So we started this work in Scranton almost 6 years ago. And already, because of the work of our task force, we were planning a November fundraiser, another Heart of Scranton fundraiser, because we've seen throughout this year, accelerated in May by the cuts that Washington made, that there was a decrease in funds available, even frozen funds that are probably never going to come to our nonprofits, to our direct providers, and also a decrease in charitable contributions because of economic uncertainty in our markets, in the whole of everyone's lives. So we were already seeing that 1-2 punch of frozen funds or no funds coming in the door for our nonprofits, an increase in need and a decrease in contributions. So we already had this fundraiser set to go. We were actually strangely going to start it on Saturday, but we pushed that up. We announced it yesterday. We pushed it out. We're doing that fundraiser for our direct food providers, helping to raise awareness. I can't tell you how many messages I've gotten over the last few days from people from every corner of our city. How can I help? What can I do? And also the other, where should I go if these SNAP benefits run out on Saturday? I don't usually go to a food bank, but I need to know where to go, or I need to tell somebody in my life where to go. So you can count on mayors to bring it together for their communities, even when Washington politicians fail us. So we will always be the ones that kind of hold down the foundation, and we help each other do that. You see the mayors on this call, we work together all the time. Already, we are chatting with each other about what it is we can do, what the trends are that we're seeing, what's working and what's not. But, it should not be that the mayors have to do this. We shouldn't have to be left holding the bag here in our communities, people that are living paycheck to paycheck, because people in Washington can't come together and get an agreement to get a budget through. And the budget that they do look at, doesn't even include the types of programs that people rely on. So we're going to continue fighting as mayors. I'm grateful for my colleagues on this call for the fight that we're in together. And with that, I will kick it to my good friend, Mayor Randall Woodfin.
Thank you so much, Mayor Cognetti. It's good to see you, Mayor Bibb. Thank you as well. Thanks to all the mayors on this call. As it's been said, and it's worth reiterating, we should not have to be on this call. This is not something we want to do, but it's necessary because I want to be clear, as I've shared with our local community. Food and nutrition is a necessity. It's not a choice. And the truth is, as mayors or any elected official at any level, we have a moral obligation to our all Americans, but here in Birmingham, to our seniors, our children, our families, to make sure that they don't starve. It is actually that simple. And while unfortunately DC and those in power are caught up only in power and politics, they have forgot to put people first. And in this case, we're talking about SNAP that has been in existence 60 plus years. This is not a rocket science moment. Money is available. This shouldn't be talked about. And so let me tell you what we're doing at the local level. I've recommended to our city council for next Tuesday to approve $1 million in support of food and nutrition for our families who are on SNAP. It's 23,000 plus families are impacted by this, but also in partnership with Christian Services, United Way, and many other faith-based organizations, nonprofits, for-profits, corporations, and small businesses and individuals. We're all leaning in to do a collective food drive, as well as raise funding to make sure no families in our city limits starve, because that is our moral obligation and the right thing to do. We hope, but we demand that those in DC get their act together and do right by the American people and make sure Americans do not starve. With that in mind, I pass this to Mayor Romero, the mayor of Tucson, Arizona.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for gathering us today, to the DMA, to my fellow mayors. Really appreciate you all being here. And as we all know, mayors are the front line of response for our communities, and as well as our residents. We usually step up together to answer the call of the needs of the moment. We're the ones that people call when Washington stops working, and nowhere is the harm more visible than in the fight for basic economic security, access to food and healthcare. That's how we make ends meet. In Tucson, nearly 1 in 7 residents, more than 140,000 people in our community struggle with food insecurity, and SNAP helps families, seniors, veterans, and the working poor in our community, as in the entire country. But beginning this Saturday, nearly 900,000 Arizonans, including 367,000 children, will lose support if Republicans in Congress and President Trump don't act to end the shutdown. Most people who receive SNAP are children and people with disabilities. I spoke personally with our local food bank. They're already seeing federal workers show up, caregivers, refugee families coming to the food bank for the first time sometimes. Throughout Southern Arizona, emergency food boxes are already being reduced, making the food boxes smaller because of the need. Locally, we have been very, very clear that no one is going to be turned away from receiving a food box if they need it. But the strain is growing. It's important that we all understand that the more families and individuals that need food from our local food banks, the less food that there is available. And we know that even if SNAP ends, hunger doesn't. And I've heard from, for example, a veteran here in Tucson who told me that she doesn't know how she'll buy groceries and still afford her medication next week. This is even made worse because of the layoffs at our local VA that are causing huge waits for service. And these are the veterans who put their lives on the line to protect our freedoms, to protect our country. How can we do this to them? I also heard from a grandmother that takes care of her 3 grandkids and lives alone, and she worries that she won't have enough food for her grandchildren to eat if she's trying to make the decisions in terms of whether she buys her medication or buys food for her grandkids to be able to survive. She even told me she has a food garden, that she grows her own tomatoes, but that's not enough. And what I can say is that mayors are not sitting on the sidelines. We're rolling our sleeves, and we're helping share resources. And we're so grateful here in Tucson for local businesses and restaurants that are wanting to help and provide food, or huge discounts to the food that they provide. We're grateful here in Tucson. I'm partnering with our local industrial development authority to try to open up 0% loans for businesses that are trying to feed our community. We can't forget that Trump has already cut funding for our local food banks and local nonprofit organizations that are usually the safety net after the federal government fails. And so we're having to face that as well. We're also grateful here in Arizona. Our governor, Governor Katie Hobbs, is deploying $1.5 million in funds to food banks across our state. She's also funding Food Bucks, which is funds for fresh food programs that people can use at farmers markets. And then, of course, as Mayor Cognetti, I am doing fundraising for our local food bank so that people donate money to our local food bank here in Tucson. Democrats are solving problems. Mayors have to step up and find solutions for the concerns being left from the federal government not working. I said back in November of last year about immigration policies, and I'll say it again now. Trump policies are cruel and inhumane. Keeping food from our children and our seniors is unacceptable. Clearly, he doesn't know about hunger. Clearly, he doesn't understand the need that American families have throughout our country that can't pay rent because of rent inflation, and also put medication in their homes as well as food. This is cruel and inhumane, and mayors are stepping up throughout the country, especially Democratic mayors. I'm calling on President Trump and the Republicans in Congress to end the shutdown and release the funds. They can do this. They can do this. They have it in their hands to be able to release the funds to feed our children and our seniors and families across America. SNAP is not a handout. It is not a Democrat program. It is a hand up, and it is putting our tax dollars to work for the most vulnerable in our country. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much to our mayors for speaking today, and appreciate the members of the press that are on the line. At this time, if you are a member of the press and you have a question for our mayors, please raise your hand. Okay, and we'll go ahead and start, Sean, with Cleveland.com. I will say Mayor Bibb just had to pop off to his next meeting. And so please feel free to ask a question. And he also has said, please direct any questions specific to him to his press office after this event.
Thank you, and I'll pose the question to everyone else then. The Democrats in Congress have made this shutdown about healthcare. They've said that they don't want to vote on a clean resolution. They want to make sure that healthcare costs don't go up for a lot of Americans. As you guys look to your partners in the federal government, would you want Democratic lawmakers to compromise on that, to end the lapse in SNAP benefits, or do you think they need to kind of stand firm on their belief that you don't move on with a new budget until the healthcare issue is solved?
I think I can make this a simple answer. by simply saying the American people shouldn't have to choose between their food and their health. It's a no-brainer. There is an existing emergency fund that exists that can be triggered for SNAP benefits. Those funds should be released. And no one should ever compromise about our Americans' health. Doesn't matter if you're DRR behind your name, black or white, urban or rural. It's actually a silly position we find ourselves in with how politicians in DC are showing up. But there should never be a choice between food and health.
Okay, thank you, mayors. Next up, JD Wallace with 13 News Tucson. I'm going to invite you to ask your question. JD, if you're with us.
Okay, now let me try now. Mayor Romero's JD Wallace, obviously, and I just want to find out how long do we think we can continue local communities supporting our fellow SNAP recipients? You know, how long are we prepared for this to go?
Well, hopefully not much, JD. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's, the federal government has responsibilities that don't fall on the city, but when the federal government refuses to fund the programs that so many Tucsonans and Arizonans rely on, then as mayor, I have a responsibility to be able to figure it out, right? Like we did with COVID. This is an unprecedented time in the history of SNAP. This has not happened even through other shutdowns. And so I have called the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona. I am going to help fundraise to see how residents can help each other. And I've had conversations with our city manager in terms of we own the water utility. And, during COVID, mayor and council had a no shutdown or no disconnect policy to our residents. We are going to try the same thing, no disconnect policy on our water for federal workers and individuals needing food assistance and low-income communities. And so we will try and do everything we possibly can with the resources we have, but it is my responsibility to ask our congressional delegation, especially the Republicans here in Arizona, to demand from the Speaker of the House that they be called back, they put together a session, and they act on the work that they are supposed to be doing. This is the federal government's responsibility, and the president should be leading and bringing everyone to the table to come to a conclusion on how they're going to move forward and end this shutdown.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Romero. Next up is Richard Banks with WBHM in Birmingham.
With WBHM to Mayor Woodfin, Democrats in the state have asked that Alabama Governor Kay Ivey call a special session to fund a state version of SNAP. Mayor Woodfin, what would you say to Governor Ivey to convince her to hold that special session or to not hold that special session?
Look, I think at any level, at all forms of government, federal, state, and local, we all have a reserve and or emergency funds. When it comes to food and nutrition, I'm unaware of any other issue that is as dire that you would probably tap into that fund. When I think about food and nutrition, it is the ultimate humanitarian effort as it relates to the general welfare of people. In our case, not just Birminghamians, but all Alabamians. I think you have a situation where 15% of Alabamians receive SNAP. That's 750,000 families, children, elders. If there was ever an opportunity to tap into that fund and call emergency session, it would be the case. And I hope that setting aside DRR as it relates to our legislators, that they can talk to the governor. And if we're in a position that the federal government is not stepping up, that in partnership with the state and everyone else, we can do our part to take care of all of not just Birminghamians, but Alabamians across all 67 counties.
Thank you, Mayor Woodfin.
Wonderful. So recognizing folks' time, we will take final two questions. First up is Ray's from the Washington Post. Apologies for mispronunciation.
Hey there. This is Reese Tebow with the Washington Post with a question for all of the mayors on the call. In addition to all of the support that you're providing to local organizations, food banks, the utility and possible, rent relief you're considering, is the option of direct aid to SNAP recipients on the table? Is that something you're doing or are considering? We've seen the San Francisco mayor, Daniel Lurie, announce city money that will replace the SNAP benefits for the month of November. So is that something you all are able to do in your cities? Thank you.
The city of Birmingham, that's what we're moving towards. Earlier, I mentioned that we're making a recommendation to our city council to the tune of up to $1 million. The idea is for us to partner with organizations who can get those funds directly to those SNAP recipients. And so we're working through the mechanics of that. There's still a lot of work to be done. Here in Birmingham, SNAP recipients receive their benefits every month between the days of the 4th and the 23rd. And so we have a few more days to work out the mechanics to find ways to get them direct money, as well as other operationalizing food banks as well for non-perishable items.
I'll answer from Scranton's perspective. So, Scranton is a city of 80,000 people, and we have the capacity to partner and support the nonprofits and get people to a place where they have food and do this fundraising and awareness campaign to make sure there's food when they get there. But we don't have a means or a mechanism to do direct payments to SNAP recipients. It's just not, that's beyond what our budget allows. And so it's just a good example of how important it is that we don't have the situation that we have at the federal level right now, that we don't have a situation we have, unfortunately, in the state here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania right now, where the state budget has been frozen since July. So, local governments, we have the power of convening and the power of being able to raise awareness and get people together, but we need the federal government to provide what they have promised in the form of SNAP benefits and so many other things that they are not providing right now by Washington not doing their job.
Yeah, and very similar to Mayor Cognetti, Tucson doesn't have the means or way of direct investment to our constituents and our residents, but besides fundraising for the Community Food Bank of Southern Arizona, we will have to see how long this shutdown and this cut in SNAP benefits lasts. Thank goodness that our Governor Katie Hobbs, is putting out emergency funds, $1.5 million, which might not be enough, but Tucson will have to work with our other jurisdictional partners, including the state and the county, to see how we hold hands and really try and avoid especially seniors and children and people with disability, losing availability to food. We do not want to see children going hungry. And I think at the same time, bringing in the school districts and seeing how school districts can be another layer of access to food, especially for children and families. And so we're just going to have to be very creative and really hope and demand from our federal partners that they get to work. This is what our tax dollars pay for, right? And part of that is demanding that our congressional representatives go back to Washington and figure it out for the benefit of all of the American people.
Okay, thank you. We are down to our final two questions. I saw two folks who want to quickly ask questions before we end this press conference. Thanks again. We will go ahead and call on Noor with Arizona Public Media, please.
Hi, Mayor Romero. This is a question for you. This is Noor from AZPM. I've talked to several food distribution volunteers, and some of them have expressed fears that people may become even more aggressive than they already have become in this sort of like what has become a fight over a limited food supply. So I'm curious what solutions or preventative measures you see the city or those organizations implementing.
The City of Tucson will always be a partner to our nonprofit partners. And part of our responsibility is to provide safety to our residents and to our nonprofit partners. And so we are going to evaluate the concerns that are coming out of nonprofit organizations that provide food for our residents. And we do have an emergency manager that can help coordinate our public safety infrastructure to make sure that everyone feels, including the individuals that might be anxious and concerned about the safety and security of their children or their partner or the person that they're caring for at home. And so no one should feel unsafe, especially because they're hungry. And so not only am I prepared to help in terms of fundraising and then looking at other jurisdictional partners like the state and the county government to step in to see if we can all supplement funding for our food banks, but also in terms of safety and being able to keep people safe, whether they're searching for food or providing food for our community.
Thank you, Mayor.
Great. And our last question will be from Marsha Brown with Politico. Marsha.
Hi, this is Marsha Brown with Politico. Thank you so much for taking our questions today. I actually have two quick questions. One, I wanted to follow up on Noor, and just this is for all the mayors. In general, are you concerned about unrest in communities when, or if I should say, the SNAP funding goes dry? And then my second question is, given the fact that the administration is not prepared to tap the contingency fund, assuming that there's not some kind of stopgap, what are you all hearing from, state leaders about kind of any disruption in services there might happen, even if there is ultimately money that starts flowing, but like, will it be a couple of days of disruption or would it be longer than that? Thank you.
Thankfully here in Scranton, that first part has not been a particular issue, but of course we are always ready with our emergency response if there is an issue like that. It's not been the case here, which we're grateful for. We have not heard anything at the city level from any of the other levels of government, just like you can tell from from us mayors on this call that we look to each other in these times of crisis. Mayors are, been in contact for days now, figuring out what we can do to help each other, give each other our best practices and what's working and what's not, and what we're seeing. But sometimes these things happen when the Washington politicians fail us, and it is left up to the mayors. And I'm grateful to have a great community and a great community of mayors across the country that look out for each other and help us help our own communities.
And then just to follow up on Mayor Cognetti's comments, here in Tucson, we really have an ethic of helping each other. And I have full trust that Tucsonans will step up to help each other in these very, very difficult times. We've gone through COVID together, and we are innovative and resilient, and really step up to help each other. And that has happened time and time again. In terms of I have not been hearing about the concern regarding people getting aggressive in food lines or anything like that. I don't think we've come to that place. But we will be prepared to help relieve that pressure in terms of assurances to our residents that at least local governments will plan to make sure that there's plenty to go around in terms of food. We will find a way. And so mayors, I think that's the job of mayors, to communicate directly with our residents to alleviate their concerns in whatever way we can. We have to step up in terms of even help, fundraise for our food banks, and start thinking about how we use our rainy day funds. Here in Arizona, we are seeing, because of Republican laws that have been passed in the state, a flat tax that was passed for corporations have really removed millions of dollars that of income tax that comes directly to cities. It has hurt us greatly, and so we're already limping, right, in terms of Republican policies. The economy has been destroyed with the tariffs. We're feeling it directly here in Arizona, with Mexico being right next door to us. So because of Republican policies, we're already seeing hits to our general budgets and our general funds and the state budget. And but we will figure out a way, because we're here, we're on the ground. We see our neighbors day to day, either when we're out and about grocery shopping or when we're picking up our kids from school. We have to face our residents, and residents trust that mayors will come up with solutions. What's hard is that our congressional representatives, especially on the Republican side, refuse to show up and have a conversation with each other. This is what we're paying them to do. They need to go to DC and have a conversation and come to a conclusion of how they will fulfill the responsibilities that they were elected to do.
I just put a fine point on Mayor Regina's comment, is that Washington politicians are failing us right now, and mayors don't have failure as an option. You see that we get to work no matter what the crisis is, and politicians in Washington seem to just think that they can play games.
Thank you, mayors. Well, appreciate you all so much for joining to hear about this important topic and how our mayors are leading the way. Please feel free to send an email to us at DMA with any additional questions, and we appreciate your time. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.